You're listening to Let's Talk About It, a digital forum that holistically addresses the issues that arise in everyday life and the current affairs that are prevalent throughout our nation and that affect our culture. Let's join host Ty Priest Hannah now for today's discussion. Let's talk about
it. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About It. I am your host, Ty Priest Hannah, but of course, everybody calls me Ty. Thank you for allowing me to vibe with you just for a few minutes. Joining me today on Let's Talk About It are my two very special friends. They have been on the podcast many times, and they are here with me again. Joining us is the Queen Mother herself, Tempestt Hough. Tempestt, how you doing, baby? You doing all right?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
I am doing well. So good to see you. So good to see you.
Yes.
So good to hear from you.
Yes.
And also joining us is my only begotten seed, Tremaine, Ty Priest, James Chandler. TJ, how's it going, man? You doing all right?
Well, let me correct that. I ain't your seed. Yeah, but I'm doing good. But I ain't your seed.
Well, man, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well. So glad to have each and every one of you on the show today, on the episode today. Of course, our topic today is discussing Will and Jada Smith. Of course, in the most recent years, Will and Jada Smith have been appearing and reappearing in the media for their marital woes. And in their most recent conversation concerning their marriage, of course, if you haven't already read or seen some clips about it, Jada made a statement that the reason why she cheated or had all of these entanglements was because of the simple fact that the sex life with Will was boring. But interestingly, even though she had all of these entanglements, even though she has probably cheated, several times over, Will surprisingly is still refusing to get a divorce, knowing the infidelity that has taken place in their marriage. He is still refusing to get a divorce. And the reason for that is his perspective is that they are to stay together, that once you are married, that you are to stay together no matter what. Now, although that could be considered very honorable, at some point, though, when you're dealing with a toxic relationship, you have to be willing to come to terms or come to the reality like that this is not worth the sacrifice of my own happiness and peace. And so we're going to talk about today, at what point do you just let it go? At what point? I know in many of our conversations, we've talked about things trying to keep the relationship going, or trying to keep two people together. But of course, with all relationships, whether you are married or just involved courting each other, when there is toxicity in your relationship, at some point you have to be willing to just say, you know what, this is just not for us. And so at what point do you do that? Now, before we go into that question, before we go into that conversation, I want to know, what are y'all's perspectives concerning Will and Jada's marriage?
Well, I feel like their marriage is a circus, and that's the nicest way I can put it. Given the infidelity over the years and how they, I guess, choose to handle the infidelity. Granted, there are rumors, there have been rumors, but I feel like just given the situations that they have been faced with and choosing to still stay together, by all means, I commend them for wanting to stay together. But given some of the things that they have gone through and some of the comments that have been made recently, I just feel like their marriage really is a circus. It's not a marriage that I would want to be a part of. It's not a marriage that I would want my kids to witness and follow. They 2 children, if I'm not mistaken, and
right.
That's not setting an example. Not given some of the things that have transpired over the years, and I do believe they've been married 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And so I see their marriage as really as a circus, and I mean, just even in the Black community, it's almost like, okay, this is not what I want. I do not want a marriage like that, to where I have to just settle and deal with certain issues just for the sake of being married, or because I don't want to get a divorce because of embarrassment or my belief or whatever the case may be.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Chandler?
I agree with Mrs. Tempestt in the act of not wanting this to be an example for any couple. And I agree, especially in the Black community, because there's, to me, no stronger love than Black love. And we have to be the trailblazers, or they should be the trailblazers to younger individuals who don't know what marriage looks like or what that requires. There's not a lot of examples that we now have that we can literally look at and take lessons from, the way that our grandma and great grandma and great grandma and grandfathers did. Now, the other side, because I was thinking of this, their relationship really isn't that, if I may say, uncommon. I believe that more relationships deal with a lot of these particular issues. It's just that they have remained private, where Will and Jada are forced to some extent to be more public. And I think it is a honest perspective. Now, in some calibers with Will staying, I think that's another conversation. But I think a lot of relationships, let's be frank, deal with infidelity, deal with the lack of communication. One of the most uncomfortable levels of communication is sexually. How do you tell your partner, he or she, that they are not performing, that they are not satisfying you? That is a hard conversation for some people.
Okay, all right, I hear you.
So I can't necessarily say that their relationship isn't uncommon. It's just that it's so public that to some people who remain quiet, at the end of the day, they're still dealing with it.
Now that is true. That is true. I will agree. I think I do agree with Tempestt. It is a circus. It is very, very toxic, and it does not give a healthy view of what a healthy marriage should look like, should be, or what have you. So I do agree with that. But also, as you stated, Chandler, this is not so uncommon, because it is something that a lot of couples, whether they are married or they're courting, a lot of couples have dealt with that. They have dealt with infidelity, and some are still dealing with infidelity or what have you. It's just so happened to be that this particular couple is a high profile couple that is seen in the public eye all the time. And it's just, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good so far as their image and reputation is concerned. But still, yet it is not uncommon. It is not uncommon at all. There are many, and when I say many, because I am a pastor, I have had the opportunity to counsel many people or what have you. But in many instances, infidelity was certainly, if it wasn't the primary issue, it came up some way, somehow, or another, or what have you. So I certainly agree. Now, you did say something just a few minutes ago. And I really don't want to dive into that conversation just yet, because that would certainly be a conversation for another episode. But you're right. That is a very challenging question. How do you convey to your wife or significant other that they are not pleasing you right? Rather it, and we won't even limit it to just sexual activity. How do you convey to someone that you're just not happy, even if they are doing things right at the bare minimum? How do you convey to that person that you're not happy with them?
I think communication is key, especially when you're speaking on terms of a healthy relationship. If you're going to speak on terms of a healthy relationship, there has to be communication, period. And communication is a two-way street, meaning I be able to articulate what the issues are or my concerns, and the other person able to listen, effective listening and effective articulation to verbalize what the problem is. And it goes both ways. And if we're both working in a manner to which we can communicate with each other, although the conversation may be a challenging conversation, we still be able to voice what we feel and what we need from that individual, where we're not happy, in a way to which it may seem slightly blunt, but you're not trying to tear down or hurt the individual. And it may very well be a tough way, but you have to find out a way of how to voice this to the other person, and the other person realize that, okay, we do want to have a healthy relationship, and we do want to maintain trust, so that you don't have the other who may step out. So sometimes you have to face the hard conversations. You just have to, if you want it to work.
Yeah, that is certainly true.
So what, to Tempest's point, is I'm a big believer that relationships equate to conversations. You can tell instantly how strong individuals' relationships are based upon how they can communicate. Because a mature relationship, when they can have that level of confidence to be able to express, hey, honey, you're not pleasing me in this way. And it's not taken negative, but it's taken in the manner of like, hey, I got to get better in this. Then that's a relationship that has strength. Divorce doesn't happen overnight. Divorce happens because we didn't have the necessary conversations that we should have. And instead of it being something that could have been diagnosed with just a simple pill, now once you get a year or two later down the line and the toxicity of the relationship has spread through the entire marriage or relationship, it's too late. Because we're not willing to be truthful and honest with ourselves first. Because you can't be truthful in a relationship if you're not truthful with you.
Right.
And if we're going to communicate and articulate and actively listen, then at the same token, we got to be willing to also compromise and change. So for me, I would most certainly agree with what you're saying, Ms. Tempest and Priest, but I think that conversations equate to relationships. But the big question is, are you having the conversations first, not just with yourself? Because we'll think it, and then we won't say anything. And then a day passes, and then a year. And the conversation that we should have had, we never had. And then we look at the conclusion and say, why didn't this not work?
Yeah, that is true. I can recall a few relationships that I've been in, and looking back on the breakup. Why are you looking at me like that, Chandler?
Doc, I'm just really intense and looking at what you're saying. You got me, Doc.
But I recall a few relationships that I've been in, and even though they have resulted in breakup, I always have a tendency to go back to reflect on how could I have done better? Because at the end of the day, I know me. I know me. I know that I could be tough to deal with. I know that I could be stubborn and resistant at times. I know that I could be, a little selfish or what have you. What could I have done to possibly turn things around? Because at the end of the day, I can sit and point in the finger at the other person all day long and say, it was her fault. It was her fault. But at the end of the day, there was something that I did that contributed to this as well. Maybe it was, how I responded to her, or, how I reacted whenever she did something that I didn't, approve of, or something of that nature, or wasn't happy with. Maybe it was the simple fact that when she did something that got me upset, I didn't say anything. I held it in. Maybe that was the problem, that I did not take the opportunity to really vocalize my opinions and my perspectives on certain things. And so I certainly agree with you. It does take a large amount of communication. Whether the conversation is a very simple, easy conversation, or it's one of those difficult conversations, that we sometimes, have to contemplate how we're going to approach it, or, what are we going to say? We want to be able to use words that is, not going to be condescending or degrading or what have you, but you want to be able to use words that is going to kind of get your point across, and let that person know that you're serious, because a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a pitcher of silver. You have to know how to effectively communicate what it is that you are saying, while still being able to maintain cohesiveness in the relationship.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You have to be able to communicate what it is that you feel, is that you're saying, not trying to hurt the person's feelings. Like that statement that Jada Smith made in terms of Will is boring in bed. Even if that is the case, I think I think that's why are you laughing? Why? I think
Cackling over there.
I know, right? Her mind must have went back somewhere.
Must be a woman thing.
Oh, it must be. But even if that is the case, you did not attack the situation. You attacked this man's character. You attacked the core of who this man is as a human being. Because what defines us as male and female is sex, our gender. You attack this man at his core, and you expect for him or anybody else to be all right with that. No, that's not going to resolve anything. If the whole purpose of communication is for us to repair what has been broken, then my obligation or my responsibility is not to use my words to attack you. The responsibility is to use my words to convey how I feel about this particular situation and what can be done to resolve it, if that makes sense. Take your phone off
Tempestt,
mute.
you're still on mute.
Yeah.
You don't want to hurt your man's pride.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, most men are pretty prideful. So when you make a comment of such, it can hurt his pride and make him feel less than a man. So the tactful way would have probably been to say something more along the lines of, let's try something different.
Right.
Let's do it this way this time and see how you like it. You got to be tactful with your words.
Right.
And I think that's what it boils down to. You know, it's not necessarily what you say sometimes, but how you say it. And so I think she could have said it in a different way to get it across to him to where it wouldn't hurt his pride or lessen him as a man and possibly embarrass him, even if he doesn't verbalize that he's embarrassed or humiliated or hurt by that. I mean, come on. If you're a woman and she tells you, you know, sex with you is boring, you're going to feel some type of way. Versus her coming to you and said, okay, baby, let's try something different. Let's try this. Let's do this. Let's see how you like this. It's how you say it. You got to be tactful.
Right. You're absolutely right. You know, go ahead, Chandler. I'm gonna let you talk.
No. You know, you're right. And it's a man thing because you stated men, we do operate off of pride. And I won't even say pride, but confidence. And that's the thing that most women are attracted. You can have a male who is not as attractive, but if he got confidence, he is looked at differently. And the second point that I want to most definitely comment on is that I believe that there's certain things that you can expose about your relationship or marriage. Even from a counselor standpoint or perspective, there are certain things, but then there are some things that are so sacred in a marriage that, quite frank, she had no business saying it. Not publicly.
Yeah. Right.
That is something that you talk about privately.
Right.
That's not something that you expose. And it also tells a different message because the message now is that clearly, not to get biblical, but there's clearly a divided house here.
Right.
And if it's a divided house, not my word, so you can't get mad at me, but his name is Jesus. A divided house cannot stand. And the fact that the third point, I have not just a issue with Jada, but also she has set an expectation. This ain't her first time embarrassing the man that she's supposed to be one with. So essentially she's embarrassing herself and she doesn't see that. Right. So let's get to the fourth point. The fourth point is that I'm also to some extent disappointed in Will. And this is where it becomes somewhat of a dichotomy because even all of us right now have heard, whether our parents or grandfather, someone says relationships take work. The reason why new millennial relationships don't work because you guys break up at the first sign of trouble versus working on it. So I get that perspective from work, but what are you teaching people? What are you teaching other young Black men that you are responsible for showing and demonstrating how you are supposed to respond? Yes, I think that we are to absorb some things, but at this point, as courageous and as honorable as his belief is that we are not going to be divorced, realistically, you're already divorced. You're the only one who's staying into a situation, and I think you're teaching others to stay in it no matter what, even if it's at the cost of devaluing who you are as a man or as a woman or as a person. And that's where my dilemma is at with Will, is that why would you stay in a situation that's not trying to better you, but it's trying to hurt you? Why stay at the hospital if you're not getting better?
Right.
And what are you teaching other young Black men that look up to you?
Right. Yeah. Man, just to piggyback off of what you said.
Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and I do feel as though Will is trying to set the tone and be the example in staying with her and not wanting to divorce. Because I was reading something where in his previous marriage, he said that was like the ultimate failure for him and he would not go through that again. But at what point do you put yourself first? Because he wouldn't be able to tell me that in this marriage he's genuinely happy, not with a woman that is condescending or degrading and saying the things that she's saying about her husband and their love life. So I don't feel like he's really happy. But at what point, like what you said, TJ, at what point do you put yourself first and your value and to just walk away from what you're in? Because again, this isn't the first time. This definitely probably won't be the last time. So at what point do you pump the brakes, let go, and say, you know what? Okay, if I'm not pleasing her, somebody else would be pleased. If that means you have to move on, you get a divorce and you move on. There's somebody out there that will accept you for you, will be faithful to you, will love you, will treat you as the man that you are, the man of the household, not go out without putting your business out, handle and discuss issues amongst both of you inside of your house.
Right.
So I get upset. Like, if Will knew me, I'd be like, okay, boo, come snatch me up because I will give you everything.
Girl, he on the way, girl. He on the way.
Come hither.
Oh my God.
Yes, Jesus. Will on the way, girl. You got him.
Oh my God.
Put you out.
but to piggyback off of what you guys said, you're absolutely right. Tempestt, you said something, and TJ, you said something as well. That it's not what you say, it is always how you say it. That is a principle. Oftentimes when I did premarital counseling, I've always made that statement towards the wife because of the simple fact that when a woman speaks to her husband or she speaks to her man, the words that she speaks, the words that she say, how she says them, that speaks to his entire being. That's giving him something that he desires, and that is honor. Honor is what causes a man to continue to be a man, whereas love is what causes a woman to be a woman. If you notice, and I can't help but to bring scripture into this, the Bible says concerning the husband, he says, husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church. Okay, but when it talks about the man, when it talks about the woman's relationship in reference to the man, he says, wives, submit to your husbands. Okay, the reason why submission is important is because submission is a form of honor in the eyes of a man. It says that you respect me, you if we could use this phrase without taking it outside, you reverence me. And oftentimes when you read some of the earlier books of the Old Testament, for instance, in the book of Genesis, Sarah calls Abraham at one point, she calls him Lord. She says, she calls him Lord, what have you. Not saying that, he's God or what have you, but she is showing him a level of honor that keeps him in a position to do whatever it is that he needs to do in terms of taking care of his wife and taking care of the family and things of that nature. And so it is very important that you be careful how you say what you say. And that's not just true for the man, but that's also true for the woman as well. As a man, when you're speaking to your wife, you can't just say what you want to say, how you want to say it. You have to be very careful about those things. You have to be very careful about those things. The analogy that I use oftentimes is, why do you think the whore is always so successful in getting the man? The reason why that is because she knows how to speak to that special place at that man's core that's going to cause him to do what it is that she is getting paid to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why a whore is so successful, because she knows how to stroke the man's ego. She knows how to make him feel. She knows how to make him feel like something that he would not be experiencing any other place.
Right.
Yeah, that I tell you, we oftentimes shake our head in disgust at the whore, but the whore is accomplishing a lot more than what some of these wives and significant others are doing. They just getting paid for it.
And when you just said that made me think, like, that is why you have a lot of relationships where you have one partner stepping out because there's something in the marriage or the relationship that is lacking. So they go outside of it to get what they don't have at home. And that the opposing partner is always upset. Okay, well, why are you cheating on me? Or why are you dealing with other women? Or why are you dealing with other men? It's because something is missing in that relationship that they feel the need to get it from elsewhere. Right. And I think that it is very, very common. Very common. I don't care if it's the fact of something as simple as just, this person listens to me and you don't listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
It could be just that simple.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I gotta agree with Tempestt. You jaked us on that, and I think you knew it. You Lord knows you jaked us on that. So I want to rewind a little bit, because you said something that oftentimes cringes down a woman's spine, and that word is submission. You use that word submission. Most women look at you, and I will tell you right now, their mind is already, I ain't submitting to nobody.
What you talking about?
And instead of them viewing it as submission is actually a strength, it's not a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And because of their past, because they submitted to a boy and not a man, they carry that. So because the first person hurt them that they submitted to, now any and every other man is either a dog, I'm not going to do this, he must be crazy if he think that I'm going to do it, and I ain't his mama. So, and he's not a mama's boy, it's just that any man wants submission. Now, I will say, to gain submission as a man, you got to also earn that.
That's right.
You can't expect that just to be given. That is something that has to be earned.
Right.
And and when you understand what submission is, I can tell you now that there are many men out there that once they've earned it, and that wife or woman, and they have that understanding, she'll tell you that she can get him to do anything that she wants him to do. Because he now says, if you're willing to trust your heart and you're willing to trust me as the man, the leader, your best friend, your ride or die, then I'm going to give you that same thing back. Because again, men are givers. All right. We like to invest into our woman. I mean, go back biblically. God took woman from man. Okay. So if he took woman from man, you got to understand that we don't have a problem in giving to women, but we also want you to give back. So I would most definitely say submission is looked at the bad thing. And I think another topic that we don't oftentimes like to talk about is that you're right. If I'm not getting fed at home, I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm going to eat. But the argument oftentimes is, well, if you're going to go out there, you've been wanting to do it anyway. No, I never want to go out there. I want to come home and eat here. But if you can't feed me, If you can't give me the nutrients that I need, then how can you expect me to stay? So I think the big problem is that we're not willing to have some real open and real conversations.
Man, okay, so let's dive into this. Let's just dive right in, because this really does sets us up for the major question. At what point do you let it go? Because if I'm continually in this relationship, if I'm continually feeding you, and that is not being reciprocated, at some point, especially if I have verbalized my concerns to you, at some point, we have to be willing to say, you know what, this is not going to work out. We have to be willing to say, you know what, we've tried, we're just not a good match, or what have you. Because Will made a statement. He said, you know, even though, yes, infidelity has been committed, and infidelity was committed on both parts, it may just be a little bit more on one side than the other, but still, infidelity has been committed. But if that is the case, then why continue to stay together? At some point, you both got to come to the decision that you got to let this go. You might as well just let it go. There's no need, there is no use in us staying together if what we need, if what we are desiring is coming from somewhere else. So what's the use of staying with each other? If I'm continually feeding you, but you are not feeding me, then at what point do I say, you know what, I just need to get up from this table and go someplace else? And and to be honest with you, that's a hard conversation. That's in my opinion, that's a hard decision to make, especially when you're trying so hard to work it out. When you're trying so hard to make it work and it's still not working. You're having discussions after discussions. You're having conversations after conversations. You're conversating throughout the entire day through text message. And then you're going to continue the same text conversation when you get home or when you get off or whatever the case. 2 or 3 days later, you're still on the same conversation. At some point, you got to decide, you know what? This is probably not for me.
And that is why I say it's a circus. That is why I say it's a circus, because I mean, it's a cycle. You have to break the cycle. If we can't come common ground, I don't care. I can jump and shout, swing from the ceiling fans, and do everything I possibly can. I can love you, and I express myself to you and tell you what I need. And if there is no change, then I mean, something has to give. You know, I mean, there's no point in just taking and it not being reciprocated. Because again, I go back and I say, you have to love yourself sometimes more than the situation or the other person. And that's not feel like you have to be selfish. Because if it's not being reciprocated, there are issues, this person isn't happy with me, okay, it's time for me to take up my little bit and walk on, you know, grace peace to you. I still love you. I've done everything I could. I fought for you. I've tried to, you know, maybe go through counseling. I've done this, I've done that, but the issue is still here. You're not satisfied. I'm not satisfied. So, okay, it's just time to just part ways. And that's okay. I know in the church we're taught, no divorce, no divorce, no divorce. But when you're in a situation of such to where you're just being like an emotional garbage can, basically, you know, you're taking on all the problems, you're taking on all the weight, you know, you're enduring comments such as not good enough in the bedroom or whatever the case may be. But you pour out and you pour out, you're trying to make it work. And I'm definitely not taking sides here, but at some point you have to just go ahead and let it go and love yourself enough, because now you're beginning, in my eyes, you're losing respect for yourself.
Right.
You're lowering your standards, I hate to say, because you're now accepting something that probably in a normal frame of mind you probably would not have accepted, but because love, and because X amount of years, and because children, and because you don't want to seem like a failure, you choose to stay in something that you know really isn't good for you. It's contaminating you, is contaminating the people around you, but yet you stay in it. And sometimes it's just best to walk away. Okay, let's just walk away. Maybe it's not meant for us to actually be together, and that's okay. But don't sit there and sell yourself short. Have more respect for yourself and more value for yourself.
I'm still dealing with two sides. And the two sides is, one, I agree with everything. On one side, how do couples make it? I think at this point, Will and Jada got married in 1997. So this will possibly make it, 24 years at this point. How do you make it? And how is it now supposed to be taught as an example for younger individuals to make it to the 25-year mark? Because every relationship gonna have its quarrels and its ups and its downs. That is why relationships are used, and the outlook is that how we build, how do we overcome? That's the success of any relationship, of any business agreement. How do we overcome this? Someone asked the question, can two walk together except they be in agreement? So that's the one aspect, is how do you get to 30 years, 35, 40, and so forth and so on? Because that's the kind of marriage I want. I want that Ruby, I think D and Davis relationship.
Yeah.
Or what Martin and Gina would show from a perspective of Black love. Like, how do you continue to overcome? So that's the one aspect. And then the other side of it, I do agree, is that with Will and Jada, but I'm going to lean more toward Will in this case, because at this point, Will is the main voice of saying we're gonna stay together. He's the driver of this. Jada's actions have showed you that she would probably be the more either immature one. And the reason why, because if she really isn't happy, she would leave too. And she's still staying there. And to broadcast their relationship, their marriage, the way she's doing, and for him to continue to allow that, is where I'm trying to figure out with the why with Will. Is it that he's trying to overcome the stereotypes that relationships don't make it? I mean, I'm so that's my dichotomy. That's why I struggle with, is for his why. Is he trying to be like Hosea? or is he going to make that decision to say that, hey, this isn't going to work, and leave? And I think it's easy to say that from our perspectives, because we haven't been married for 24 years.
I haven't even been married for a year.
I haven't been in a relationship for 24 years.
I haven't even been in a marriage for a minute.
I remember one relationship, it didn't even last 24 days. So, so I'm struggling in this because I want to make it to that level of a relationship healthy, but every relationship has its battles. Every relationship has its struggle. And the tougher the struggle, And the way you overcome it is also equated to how strong your relationship is.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say it takes two. And in this case, it's not like it's taking one. One person is being the one. So the relationship looked very parasitic to me. One person is gaining while the other person is losing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say, in terms of keeping a relationship, maintaining a marriage, it's going to take work, and work looks like communication. Work looks like making a decision to stay committed. Work looks like making a decision to be honest with each other, no matter what. Work looks like making a decision to work through whatever obstacles that may come in our way. It's not about just having a feeling, but you're going to have to put some work into this. And in many instances, when we look at relationships, you have to wonder a lot of times at what point you have to wonder, especially if you've been married, 5, 10 years, even 20 years. If you've been married that long and all of a sudden you just make a decision to stop, to just throw it all away, at what point did you stop working? Because relationship is going to take a whole lot of work. And if two people are agreeing to work to keep the relationship together, then there won't be any room for anyone else on the outside, because your focus will be so driven by the person to whom you are connected to making sure that they are okay and all of that stuff. So it's going to take work. It is going to take a lot of work. And the question is, are you willing to put the work in? And I have, and that's not just a question that I would just ask, anyone or whoever is listening. That's something that I even have to answer myself, because next year, I'll be 40 years old. And as being 40 years old, I've never been married before. And at this age, to be honest, I'm a little settled. I'm a little settled for someone to come into my life at this point and try to persuade me to change. It's really, or to see the error in some of the ways that I have. It's definitely going to take the hand of God to intervene, because I don't think I'll be able to do it on my own. I don't think I can do it on my own. So,
being single.
Say what now?
So we just get so comfortable and complacent with being single and alone, being what you want to do when you want to do it.
Right. You really do get comfortable being single. You do get complacent being single. I mean, you leave and go whenever you want to. You could buy whatever you want without having to consult, your spouse or your significant other or anything of that nature. And you don't have to explain to anybody why you bought what you bought or why you spent your money on what you spend your money on. It belongs to you. It's your prerogative. It's your prerogative. But at the same time, for me, one of the things that I have a tendency to do is, I buy a lot of technology. I buy a lot of tech stuff. So, anything that's hot out there, so far as technology, I'll go and get it. I have 4 computers, a few televisions, some that I don't even use. I just bought them because I like it. But at the end of the day, I can't talk to any of these things. I can't, I can't do anything to any of these things. So, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I'm comfortable being single, but at some point, I do want to be able to experience, relationship with somebody.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. I think that life has a way of forcing people to to see more clearly. And what I mean by that is this. Imagine if you're at your deathbed and no matter the amount of money that you might have accumulated, it has no value to it. You can't buy any extra days. You can't buy more time. So now money is not valuable. But then let's go somewhere else. Let's say that, you know, I've accumulated all of these items. Well, when I'm on my last, I don't want to take a ride in a Porsche. Those items they're not valuable. For me, I believe that what will be valuable for me at that point in time is not just the people that I affect, or more importantly, that I have a relationship with God, but I don't want to be there by myself. I want to be able to look into that woman's eyes, have my hand in her hands, knowing that even though I'm about to make this transition, I'm not making it by myself. And to me, at that point, even if it takes work to get there, I would rather be working on something with someone than not to be working with it at all. So for me, I got to be in a relationship. I've been single, and it's fun. It has its moments. But then when you home by yourself and you look to the right and the left, and it's just you and Netflix, that don't sound so sexy. When you want to go out to dinner and you at the table by yourself, I mean, come on. You know what I'm saying? You're going to want that. And
right.
even...
Yeah.
I'm Baptist. Hold on for a second.
Oh, God.
I'm just saying, for me, I value having that relationship because I feel like it helps make me better. If I'm done.
But you know what, TJ, that is so true. You know, I was sitting in Olive Garden about a week and a half ago. And, you know, I was just sitting there thinking like, oh my goodness, I'm 31 years old, no children, and, you know, have a career. And I'm like, I'm manless. Like, Lord, when are you going to send him? You know? And then you look at people around you, you know, you look at your associates, you look at your friends, and you see that they're married, they have children, and then you're sitting here. And I begin to question myself, okay, what's wrong with me? How do I have this? You know? And it does get lonely. I mean, being in a house by yourself at night, sometimes you just wish you had someone that was there to just hold you, someone that you could talk to and just share intimate moments, and not even in a sexual way, but your minds coming together and just having deep conversation. I long for those things. And it's like, okay, God, when is this gonna happen? Because you know, my a little bit, and I know it's not my timing, but okay, what's the hold up here? You know, so you know, like, okay, is it me? Am I the problem? Is there some more work that you need to do on the inside of me? And I know I am a bit much. I can be a bit much. I mean, I'm spoiled, and you know, the things my way because I've been single for so long.
Praise God.
But even in that, you do want someone to share life with.
Right.
And I long for the on the flip side of that, then I look at Jada and Will, and I'm like, okay, God, maybe this is why you're prolonging it a little bit. Maybe you still shaping and making and molding this man, because I don't want divorce. I do not want divorce to be in my view once I get married. I don't want that. But you do get lonely. I will say that. I can definitely agree to that.
But I believe that life is about shifts too. I mean, life never goes the way that we plan it. from day to day, we shift. You didn't get the promotion. You have to shift. Life is all about shifting. And to those who are not willing to adjust or shift, I don't think that they can see the success of the other side. So, as you stated, Tempestt, on one side, being single does have its perks, but I think the real question that I have asked myself is this: that despite what I may have to go through within, and maybe I'm contradicting myself, within a certain amount of limitation, am I willing to work to have that other individual in my life? Or am I quick to give up because I don't want to deal with drama? I don't want to have to deal with the growth process. Because at the end of the day, no matter, there is no perfect he or perfect she.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only way that you can become perfect is when you're willing to grow and come together. So for me, give me a relationship. Now, but I will have a stopping point. Now, that's the question. I think, is there a stopping point in relationships?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So if you want a relationship, though, you got to deal with some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm stubborn.
Amen.
I'm a stubborn individual. If my
Amen.
mind is focused, that's where I'm going at.
Yeah.
And my thing is that you're going to go right with me.
Right.
Now, to the other side, she might be stubborn. Am I willing to go past that? Am I willing to work that out? So for me, I would rather have someone and work it out. But with Will's case, I agree. I think there is a point that you got to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You do have to stop. You do have to stop. You can't continue to degrade yourself and allow people to mishandle you and mistreat you, because what you allow or don't allow in a relationship, that's how you are teaching that person to treat you. That's how you are teaching that person to love you. Love is something that has to be taught. It is something that has to be taught. No, you cannot come into a relationship and automatically assume that you may know how to love a person, because every person is different from individual to individual. The way I love one girl, I cannot love the next girl the same way. I may love the other girl through just buying her a whole bunch of stuff, whereas the next girl that I'm with, maybe me spending all my money is not what she interprets as love. Maybe she is a person who desires more of my time. So you're right. In that regard, I have to adjust. I can keep my money in my pocket and spend more time with her, or what have you. And so that is something that I certainly agree. I certainly agree. Well, listen, guys, we can definitely we can go on and on and on about this situation, about this topic. We all have some great points, but of course, our time is already far spent. So once again, thank you guys for joining me. You all have a wonderful evening.
I hope you've enjoyed our discussion today. You already know I have. If you like what you hear, or you have a particular topic that you'd like discussed, you already know what to do. Just simply send us an email at ltaipodcast29501@gmail.com, or you can simply shoot me a text message at area code 843-799-7619. You already know I want to hear from you. Once again, thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk About It. I'm Ty Hanna. I'm out. Peace.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
You've been listening to Let's Talk About It.
Let's talk about it.